Hi everybody, I'm Sarah, and today I'm going to be showing you how I use InDesign in my workflow. Let's get started. So I'm sure that some of you are confused as to why a motion designer is talking about InDesign and doing a tutorial about it. I actually worked in publication for 5 years in the very beginning of my career, and InDesign was something I used every single day. I still use it. There are some things that InDesign just does very well that I love about it. And I decided to make this tutorial after I had a conversation with a friend of mine. He was like, "Whoa, you're like a professional Instagram story maker because like this is the best way to arrange all these frames that you just posted." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, no, that's super easy. You just make that in InDesign real fast. It took me like 5 seconds." We started the conversation of like how he had never really opened InDesign or maybe not even downloaded it, and people just assume it is only for publications. And yes, I believe that's what it was originally created for, but it does so much more than just publication design. As you can see here, this is actually where I create all the cover images for my tutorials that I put on YouTube. Like, so this is in the preview mode. If I go into normal, you can see like, so this is my I have text here, text there, I have an image there, and then the whole background is an image that I created with with assets that I made and brought into Photoshop and placed there. And one thing that InDesign does really, really well, it is the ideal place to bring together both pixel-based art and vector-based art, and then also you can do your text in here. So that is one thing that I really appreciate about InDesign, is that it's just kind of the perfect go in between Photoshop and Illustrator, and then you also can do text in here. And you can even copy and paste vector logos directly from Illustrator into InDesign, and InDesign will then like create swatches and put them in the swatch library of what you're doing. Like, so if I like pasted in a logo, it would pull in those colors and it'd be added over into the swatches here. So I think this is the one I created for this tutorial. It's a little bit meta, I guess, that we're looking at this and doing the tutorial at the same time. And then here's the one I did for my hand rigging tutorial that I posted recently. If you just double click at the edge of a text box, it'll then just shrink down to the size of the actual text, which is a nice little thing there. And like Illustrator, you can round out boxes. So like this, my Do It Rigging logo has a white fill because it was just a ping, and I added up here a rounded corner so it would match the After Effects logo there and the logo icon there. And then this is actually two different images. So this is the background image, and then I made a screenshot of the hand with all the, the controllers and everything. And this frame is actually, like, you can just, yep. I want this corner of the frame. No, that's not what I want. There we go. Like, I could just pull this over. So there's two different arrows. There's V, which is the regular arrow, the selection tool, and then there's the direct selection tool, and the shortcut for that is A. And that's where you can go in and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna make a crazy angle, or I'm gonna just, the only thing is like when there's an image in there, it also, this is what will allow you to directly move the image around in your frame. Control Z, of course, does everything that typically does, and not every program. Yeah, so this is how like I got the nice angles on the images in my Maxon presentation image. Like I made all the angles happen there. And it's just, that's a really great feature to it. Another cool thing about it is that it allows you to sort things, or like, so this was a breakdown that I did that I posted on Instagram. So you can easily create Instagram size pixel, images, and you can just drop in your images here. And what's nice about this is that it allowed me to create the cover image, like letting people know that, hey, swipe over and you'll see more. And then this I can actually set up in what is called a master. So in the pages over here, you can have master pages, and then this is none, and this is a master, and you can always make a new master, and then I'll prefix B and I'll make a new master, and you decide what size it is. And on the master you can do all sorts of things. You can change the margins, so layout, margins and columns. I can start just bringing them in, bringing them out, whatever. And that would change then every page that had that master applied to it. And you can see every page has A applied to it, which is a master. And this is where I created this little guy down here at the bottom, where I've got the shape that I've put rounded corners on it. And if I go, not Command B is for, or Control B. Still think sometimes in Apple shortcuts, and it's been years, I'm on a PC, but sometimes I still will say Command instead of Control. Control B brings down the text frame options, which shows where you can align it. And this is just align center, but you can also align to the bottom, justify at top, which is nice for if you just want text at the bottom of something. Let's see. Go into object corner options. Okay, there is no shortcut for that, but this, as you can see, is I've set up rounded corners just on the outer corners here, and then on this side it's just regular squared off corners, which is another great feature there, and that I can have a stroke on the background as well as a fill, and then I can still have text inside, and I can change the color of the text. And it's nice that it just creates this entire object that's just there. And so that is on each one. Looks like I got rid of it on here, but I could put none. No, there's nothing there. If I drop A back onto here, it brings up this. Now, with masters, it's going to lock when it's directly, because it's directly linked to basically the template, which is what the master is. It's basically a template page. And if I wanted to adjust this, I need to do Control-Shift-Click. And when I do that, then it, how to put it, like it almost breaks the link to the master, which now you can edit it. And so that's where I was able to then, I'm gonna delete this, but then on each page I was able to put, okay, so this is the wireframe, this one's the surface, this is the front highlights, this is, it allowed me to label everything, but it was then all unified. It was all in the exact same place. I wasn't copying, pasting every single time. It's just a really great, easy way to be able to set something up like this. Now, another cool thing that you'll see a lot on Instagram is the slide over images that are perfectly aligned. So when you slide over, it really feels like you're just pulling an image over. And I'm assuming that they do this in InDesign because that's how I've done it in the past. So let's do File, New Document, our Control N, and we are going to do 1080 height, and we are going to create 3 pages, and we're gonna just create this. All right, so now they're all like this, but I want a document setup. Now I do want them facing pages. There we go. So you have to unclick allow document pages to shuffle, so that way it doesn't move them around. And then this creates 3 pages all next to each other. So it's almost like having 3 artboards next to each other. And then you can just grab, this is your rectangle frame tool, and they have all different ones. So if you wanted to do a circular or polygonal, but the X inside, that means that this is specifically made for you to place an image in. So I can drag that over, drop it. Let's do Command D, and let's go ahead and I'll just pull in a frame from my reel. So let's pull in, sure, this one. Now this is fill frame proportionally, and this is generally what I use. And what that means is that it's going to take that image and it's going to scale it up to fit, but it's going to do so that way you're not warping the image. Because if you just pulled it out and did this, like, you're squishing the image. So what another one is fit content proportionally, which means then I'm just telling the picture to get as big as it can in the frame without clipping it. Those are the only 2 I use. The other ones are fit content to frame, which then means you're not you could scale it up really oddly. Like, see, now it just stretched it. So I don't understand why that's even a thing. And then the other one is fit frame to content, which could be useful, which is basically then you're just making the frame as big as the content itself. So this is how you would create like a 3-image scroll over sort of thing in Instagram. And this isn't the best picture of why that would be useful, because it wouldn't be really interesting to just see this and scroll over. And this is interesting, but then like this is boring. But you get the idea. So you could, this is just an easy way, because then you would just go File, Export, and you export it as a JPEG, and then you could just save it, and then you export the pages. So then it would save it as, since it's all untitled, it'd be Untitled 1, Untitled 2, Untitled 3. So it's just a really quick, easy way to do that. I do not want to save this. Now, another cool thing that you can do for social media is, I'll show you the grid system. So we're going to go File, New. Okay, we'll do Control N. And this one, we're going to make it a story size. So I'm going to show you how I do stories. 1080 by 1920. We only need 1 page. Create. All right, layout, margins, and columns. Preview is on, so margins, no, this is not what I want. Layout, create guides. All right, so we want, let's do 3 rows. And I do it to page. Margins will take into account the margin that you want page. At least I do. Because that way it is only the size of this page, and it's not going to, because if it's going to margins, it's expecting that whatever you're doing is going to be within the margins, and I'm not doing this within the margins. The image is going to bleed off. It's going to go right to the edge. So set the guides to the page. Do the 3 rows. Okay. I'm going to grab this over. Alt Shift to duplicate, and then Control D for placement, and we'll just grab these 3. So all 3 of these are loaded in, and you can see what image I'm about to place. So I can drop that in there, I'll drop that up there, and I'll drop that down there, and I'll highlight all of them and do that. So I've just dropped in 3 frames. Say I didn't want the white space in between. Let's go to Layout, Create Guides, and to the page still. We're going to click Remove Existing Guides. We're going to do 3, and we'll bring the gutter all the way down to 0. Now I can just, if I zoom in, I'll see, okay, that goes up, that goes down. That goes up, that goes down. Highlight all of them, fill frame proportionately. Oh, this one I made too big. Fill frame proportionately. And I'll go into the preview mode, and you can see now they are all right up against each other. I personally like to have a little bit of space, but it's all up to you, whatever you want to do. And you can also do layers in InDesign. So let's undo the resizing and the guides. Let's say that looks great, but I want the bottom layer, I'll lock the top, to be black. So I'll just grab a rectangle tool, I'll zoom out, make it the size of the comp, be selected, and let's make it black. So now the space in between will be black. Simple enough. So those are some ways you can use InDesign for, Instagram, or even resizing your images real quick for any social media, really. So let's do another new one, and we'll do 1080 by 1080. And I'm going to show you a trick here too. Even if you accidentally just use the regular square tool, a rectangle tool, you can still place things in it. So if I do that, it'll then just convert it, which is a nice little feature. But so this is a frame, and now this is like cropping it without actually cropping it. And I always liked it doing it this way and not in Photoshop when I can, because it allows me to move things around, like, oh, I want it more over here, which I wouldn't, but you get the idea that it just gives you more freedom to, like, okay, I'm going to crop this to the Instagram square, but does this look good? It just gives you a little bit more freedom for that. Now I'm going to delete this, and let's do layout create guides. And everyone's always doing this kind of stuff, at the beginning of the year and the end of the year, and you want your top 9. Ta-da! You've just made a perfect grid. That's really easy for you to drop things into. So this is something that's also very useful about InDesign. Another thing that I've used InDesign for is in the past when I've had to create a reel that needed to tile videos. Like I did this when I worked at Vidzu Media, and I did the social media reel, and we did duplicate frames in that, since some of our social media animations, wouldn't be the classic, 1920 by 1080. So doing tiled videos allowed us to show the videos that we did in a more interesting way. So we did that, and I was the editor / animator on that. And for me, the easiest way to create a perfect grid was to do it in InDesign, of course. So new document, 1920, 1080, create, margins don't matter, layout, create guides to the page, and we want to do even numbers, and I will show you why. Here we go. And we don't want a gutter on any of these. 0. And okay, that's good. To make sure you don't move them around, you go to Window, View, Grids and Guides, Lock Guides, so now they won't move around. Another thing you can do is you can just make squares. So I'm going to do this and make it fast. I'll fill it with magenta, And I'll drag it over, holding Alt Shift. And Alt Shift. Alt Shift. And Alt Shift. And I can just highlight all of these and we'll reverse it. So now it's that, and there we go. And now you can just do File, Export, Base Grid, Save, Replace, Export. And then you can just open that up in After Effects. New comp from Selection, and then Control R for ruler. And you can just drag your guides out. You get the idea. So this is how I would make sure to set up a perfect grid. Someday, I'd really like if Adobe would take this capability from InDesign and use it for After Effects. I just think people are using grids a lot, and yeah, InDesign is just so good at making perfect grids, and I like perfect grids. So that's cool. Now, another cool thing about setting it up this way for those who don't want to do math, this allows you to not do math. So I just select this. I'm going to go and reverse it so you know which one I've got. Oh. Switch it. And I can see this is 240 pixels by 180. So I know that my smallest comp in my tiles will be that size. Now, the reason I made sure it was even, so this way we could break the grid. So this is the base grid, all these little squares. But it's always fun to break the grid. And you're still keeping to the rules, since now it's just taking up 4 spots. And now you know that is this size. And then you can go even bigger. And like say you're gonna do long skinny one, so you can do 4 of those. Now you know, like, okay, so it's this size. Or you're gonna do the half, and we all know what the half is already, so that's not a very interesting. But so whenever you make a grid for After Effects, it's good to keep this in mind, because you're not, well, some of you might just stay in these little grids, but that's going to be very boring. It's always good to add some variety, especially if you're hanging out there for a while. If you're just doing these are my top posts from last year, go ahead and just keep them all the one size. You don't need to get all fancy with it. But if you're doing a reel with different sizes and you're doing a grid, it's nice to break the mold a bit and add some variety to it. So this is how I set up grids in InDesign and then bring them into After Effects. Let's jump over to my blank proposal doc, and I'll go into whatever this view is called, normal view. So you can see that I have this base grid, and then I break the grid, but I use it as just a general outline of where things will line up, and it helps to create just a unified look. And I break the rule with like the text, like the bullet points, because I'm not going to align the bullet points all the way over here. That would look terrible. But it's really great for when I'm doing these references and I can create a quick grid of images that I've pulled, of what I'm thinking it'll look like, and then just like this is an image from an example of like the idea of this particular animation. And then another great thing that you can do in InDesign is that you can create interactive PDFs. And what that means is that I can embed links. So let's go into hyperlinks, and you can see, oh, I've locked this layer. Let me lock the backgrounds, content, hyperlinks. So you can see that this right here is a link, and it goes to this. This is also a link, And this one's a link. So that way, when I send this off to the client, they'll be able to click on it and then watch that video example that will better explain the idea that I have. You can also do this with images, which is really nice. So if I have this selected, I could click plus and I could add a URL. I can change all this stuff. And if I would file, export, and you can't do the Adobe PDF presets, you need to just do file, export, and you see Adobe PDF Interactive. This is important. So we'll save this, and it's going to, it should open after exporting. Yeah, view after exporting. I'll press export. It's exporting all the pages. And I'll pull this over here. You can see, and if I would click on this, I'll drag this window over, it then goes to this Vimeo link. It's on my Vimeo. I'm an example. So that's just a really nice thing. And back before I used QuickBooks for my freelance invoices, I would create my own invoices in InDesign, and I had buttons that I would make that would go directly to like a pay me PayPal thing. And another thing that I'm going to show on this project is my master pages. And another great, so like this is just, you know, title, default text, and then I've got this which shows up at the bottom of every page with this master page selected, and this is where you put, like I would put whatever company this was for and then whatever this proposal is. And this B right here is actually a page number, and you do that by doing type. It's in type, insert special character, markers, current page number. So that's how you do the page numbers in InDesign, which is a nice thing for a proposal if you're sending off this PDF to a client, and then if they print it out, things won't get, and if things get out of order, they'll still be able to know what page is what, and it's just good practice to have page numbers. It makes things look a little bit more professional in a proposal kind of section. All right, everybody. That covers how I use InDesign now as a motion designer and animator. There is a lot more to this program than what I covered, so if you have any questions, please let me know. Bye. See you next time.